Hello and welcome to the San Anselmo Quality of Life Commission Connecting the Green Dots Speaker Series, Simple Solar Solutions. My name is Emily Quinton and I am the chair of the Quality of Life Commission. Before I review our agenda for today's event, I just wanted to give you a little bit of brief background on our commission. The Quality of Life, or QOL Commission, is charged with promoting the sustainability of our community by enhancing opportunities for sustainable practices, as well as securing a high quality of life for our residents in San Anselmo. And we do this by balancing the needs of nature by simultaneously meeting environmental, economic, and community needs. Some of the projects and initiatives that our commission has been involved in include our Connecting the Green Dots Speaker Series, like today's event, and last year on Zero Waste Living. The San Anselmo Deep Green campaign, which is led by a community member, Nancy Vernon. And if you'd like to learn more about MCE, there will be some information in our presentation today, and they have a table outside on the lawn. We present Green and Silver Awards to recognize members of our community who make significant efforts to improve the local environment, as well as contribute valuable volunteer time. Another project that we have going on this spring is supporting the Straws Upon Request initiative by one of our commissioners, Heather Itzla, and she's working with Drake students to encourage local restaurants to not automatically serve straws to reduce plastic waste. And we're also involved in many more projects. If you're interested in learning more about the QOL Commission or joining, please stop by our table outside. We are currently recruiting commissioners. Here's a look at today's agenda. Our mayor, John Wright, will give a welcome and talk about how solar relates to our town's climate action goals. Deborah Nucky of In-Phase Energy will give an overview of what solar is and how it works. We will hear from David Kuhnhart from SolEd on the process of getting solar on your home. Then Alex DeGiorgio will provide us with an overview of Marin Clean Energy's programs related to solar. There will be time for questions at the end of the presentation, and we invite you to check out the vendors on the town hall lawn until 1 p.m. today. Before I turn it over to Mayor Wright, we would like to take a moment to thank the vendors and solar providers that are in attendance at today's event. I do want to note that the town does not officially endorse any of these vendors, but they are here to share about their programs and products. I'd also like to recognize Michael Burrs and Barbara Thornton, who were instrumental in making today's event happen, as well as all the members of the QL Commission who have volunteered time to make this event a success. Besides being mayor of our town, John Wright is the chief regulatory counsel with Wells Fargo & Company, was a trustee for the Tam Union High School District, named Marin County Trustee of the Year in 1997, and all three sons are graduates of Sir Francis Drake High School. Mayor?
Thank you. Well, as the mayor, I'm happy to have my name over the world here. I guess what this is supposed to symbolize is that we have global issues and we act locally to influence them. Actually, I first of all wanted to thank the members of the Quality of Life Commission, Annabelle Vernon, Emily Quinton, Marita Mayer, Michael Burrs is here, Sita Kufu is out on a table, Chantal Mayer, and Heather Itzla. One of the reasons that San Anselmo has such a wonderful quality of life is that we've got fantastically engaged community volunteers that help on all variety of issues, and including the Climate Action Plan. San Anselmo did adopt, I'm going to move forward here, these are, so we'll get into why we're here. So San Anselmo, the town, adopted the Climate Action Plan a couple of years ago, prior town council. I wasn't on it at the time. Barbara, I think you were, in 2011. We understand at the town level that climate change has the potential to significantly affect our residents and businesses, as well as other communities around the world. And consequently, in 2011, the town adopted a plan and established a target to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by a specific amount by 2012. I'll go back to the other one. So we actually have specific, in our Climate Action Plan, which is a detailed document, a copy of which is out there, and on our website, You'll see some very specific actions, very specific background, including this statistic here. This is looking at San Anselmo alone based on population estimates and information about energy use. If we do nothing, by 2012, 75,000 tons of greenhouse gases will be emitted just by the town of San Anselmo. But our target is to reduce that to 60,000. So it's a pretty ambitious goal, but there are very, very specific measures that are in the plan, things that can be done by the town itself, the town government, buying energy-efficient vehicles, installing solar on our own facilities. But quite a bit, the vast majority, I think, of this, let me see if we've got, there it is. So these are the components of the plan: transportation, green building, solar installation by commercial businesses and residents, and use of solar by residents, or the use of MCE's Deep Green program, for example, which you'll get more detail about, is a very important part of how we plan to reach these goals. I have some personal interest in this, having actually investigated solar myself a few months ago, and I'm very happy that we're doing this because I found there's a lot of questions that people have as they get into it. There's much talk of installation, or should you install solar panels on your home. I actually had talked with one of the vendors out here a few months ago, got a lot of information, became pretty interested in it. I still had a few questions yet to be resolved, but the programs are there's a lot more options now, I think, than were out a few years ago. It's much easier to finance. There are much more attractive rate arrangements that you can get. This is for your direct installation. Certainly the easiest thing for most people, if they want to contribute to this, and we strongly urge this, is the Marin Clean Energy Deep Green program. That doesn't require you to do anything at your home. It's just a matter of signing up for that, through Marin Clean Energy. So, and the cost of that, if it's purely a dollars and cents issue to you, as it is to a lot of people, the cost is really very similar. It's not really much more at all, frankly. And in fact, in some cases, could even be less, depending on your energy use. So I hope that people will take advantage of the speaker information today and the booths outside. This is really I think, a fantastic program to really try to implement in very concrete ways the climate action plan that the town adopted a few years ago. So again, thank you to the organizers of this and to all the speakers. It's a wonderful event. I would strongly urge those that are interested in doing some of this work themselves we have a couple of vacancies on the Quality of Life Commission. We're sad to know that Emily has moved to Berkeley, so they will have her energies, and we really appreciate, Emily, your work as chair, and we hope that others will be inspired to contribute to this type of effort. So thank you very much, and Emily, I guess I'll turn it back over to you to move along the speakers. Thank you. I must go to other mayor duties. Thank you.
Next up is Deborah Nucky. She heads global content marketing for a leading solar technology company. Deborah has a Master's of Science in Sustainable Design and is a lead accredited professional in green building science. And she will be talking to us about what solar is, how it works, a little bit about the basics, so we can understand moving forward and have the language to talk about solar. Deborah?
Thanks, Emily, and good morning. Set the timer so I don't run off too long. I don't know if you all know, but we're getting a massive, massive power plant, probably the largest in the world, or at least in the nearby region, built right here in San Anselmo. Were people aware of that? It's called the Sun. It arrives every day, and this chart blows my mind. If you look at this, The left-hand side is the annual output. The right-hand side is the known reserves for the rest of time. So what we're seeing is the potential energy from the sun is massive. But if you look at how much we actually tap, less than 1% of the electricity on the grid is coming from solar these days. It's a very, very small amount. And so what I wanted to talk about today was just give you a little background on what is solar, how does it work, and some of the questions, and David will then talk about the more important question, which is often how do you finance it, will it save you money, and so forth. And one thing I've found with our surveys of customers that use our technology, who are pretty typical of solar customers in general, about 70% of people are doing it to save money, not to save the planet. Saving the planet's kind of a nice bonus. So looking at what solar is, what we're talking about today is predominantly solar photovoltaics. So the solar systems that create electricity, take the energy from the sun, and create electricity to use in your house or in your business. There are other types of solar as well. We've got solar hot water or solar thermal systems, which I've seen there's at least one vendor out there that has one. That's directly using the sun to heat water that can be used in your house. That used to be the cheapest way to get hot water and actually a lot more efficient than solar. The numbers, now that the price of solar is dropping, the numbers are becoming a little more even, but it's still worth looking into, particularly if you have teenage daughters who take hour-long showers. Another thing is solar ovens. There's people throughout the world, particularly in developing nations, using sun directly to gain energy. Solar ovens just reflect the energy of the sun into one place. And then you've got utility-scale solar plants that called concentrated solar, where they're literally reflecting the solar back into a single place to create extreme heat to drive things. But today what we're going to talk about predominantly is solar photovoltaics. I just want to run through what a system is. So talk a little about the basic components. You've got the panels or modules. You've then got the inverter, and then the kind of balance of systems and the grid. And people don't think of the grid as being part of their system, but I'll just talk briefly about why it's all kind of worth considering. So the most basic part is the panel. There are different types of panels, but there's not massive variation. There's some variation in quality, and you'll certainly see probably plus or minus 5% in output, depending on whether you're going with the most basic panels versus the highest quality panel. There's also variations in aesthetics. So the panel on the right, the all-black panel, what they've done is they've taken the back sheet of the panel and just made it black, so it's visually less obvious on the roof. A lot of people will actually pay more for those because they look more attractive. They're slightly less efficient because they get a little hotter, and solar actually likes bright but cold things. A lot of people assume solar bright and hot is good, but bright and cold is even better. And then there's the different types of panels, the polycrystalline versus monocrystalline. There's a difference in price. There's a little difference in the actual output. Basically, you're paying more for the mono. They produce a little bit more energy, but they tend to be more expensive. And then different vendors, you'll see a few of them here, will have different ways that they get the electricity from the panels, and so you do see about plus or minus 5% variation in the amount of energy captured depending on the panel technology. The second piece is the inverter. So the panel takes the sun's energy and turns it into direct current. The inverter takes direct current and turns it into alternating current. So what's running through the wires in your house is 220 volt or 110 volt AC. So what the inverter has to do is two things. One, it has to take the direct current from the panel and turn it into alternating current. But what it also has to do is it has to see that the grid's up and working and has to synchronize, because alternating current's a wave. And so what the inverter's doing is synchronizing the energy to make sure that it can basically integrate with the other energy within the house and the energy coming from your meter. So what that actually means, and what a lot of people don't realize, is if the grid goes down, if there's a power outage, the vast majority of solar PV systems will not work because they have to turn off. Otherwise, they might risk feeding electricity into the grid and electrocuting a utility worker. So when you're getting a solar PV system, don't assume that if there's a long-term outage that you've still got energy coming from the sun, because unless you've really kind of done a few pretty sophisticated workarounds, your solar won't be working. The difference between string and microinverter, it's about 50-50 in the market these days in terms of what installers will recommend, and it sometimes depends on your roof. A string inverter, what they're doing is they're connecting all the solar panels in a string and then using one large inverter for the whole house. It's about yay big. It would be in your laundry or your garage or on the side of your house. Microinverters, and I work for a company that makes microinverters, so that's my bias. But microinverters, what they are, they're small, about yay big, and they sit underneath the panels on the roof. And there's a few reasons why an installer might recommend one over the other. String inverters are lower price and have high efficiency, so it's not necessarily an efficiency difference and can often give you a cost advantage. But microinverters, what they're doing is as soon as you've got anything awkward, if you've got a roof with a chimney that might cast a shadow on one panel for a while, or if you've got a tree that will cast shadows for a couple of hours a day. With a string system, the worst performing panel on your roof sets the output, so it pulls them all down, kind of like Christmas tree lights. If one bulb goes out, they all go out. With microinverters or module level electronics, there is a hybrid also called DC optimizers. With those, what happens is each panel basically acts independently. So if one of them gets a little shaded, that panel's production will go down, but the other ones don't. So if you have a complicated roof, if you want to do panels facing different directions, your installer will probably recommend either microinverters, and there's several brands of those, or possibly DC optimizers. If you've got a pretty uninterrupted, unshaded roof, everything facing one direction, they may recommend string inverters. Some installers just use microinverters for everything, just as a standard. So you can really kind of go either way on those. Slightly higher production in the long run from microinverters, but they're also more expensive up front. The rest of the system, called balance of systems, you've got racking, which is how it attaches to your roof, and that's something that in the Q&A we'll probably get questions about roofs, because that's always one of the biggest questions for people. Is it going to damage my roof? There's the wiring. There's monitoring. Monitoring is something that may or may not come with a system. It may be as simple as here's your total production for the month. It may be as complicated as here's the production per panel per hour of the day. We know with the microinverter systems where you can get that per panel monitoring, some people really do like to go down into that detail. And a lot of the installers actually prefer to give higher level information so they don't get phone calls every 10 minutes going, I'm getting less power out of the panel third from the left. And then the grid. The grid really is part of your system for two reasons. One is it kind of acts as a battery. If you're at work during the day, in the sunniest time, your system may be cranking out electricity, but not actually able to use it unless you're running things, a lot of appliances while you're out of the house. Chances are you're producing more than you're using in the middle of the day. So what happens is your energy will be going through your meter back into the grid and will be turning your meter backwards and feeding into the grid. Unless you have a battery storage system, that's my 10 minutes, sorry. Unless you have a battery storage system, which the economics don't necessarily make sense for that yet. But the grid also provides backup. So basically, if you have a long set of cloudy days, if you have something go wrong with your system, the grid is kind of your backup system. So it's acting both as a battery and as a backup, and of course as your nighttime supply. Just quickly, watts versus watt hours. Watts are basically the amount of energy being used at a single time. So a 100-watt light bulb, you use, if you've got 10 of those on, you're using 1 kilowatt. When you're talking to solar installers, they'll be talking about kilowatt hours, which means how much can you run over time. So 10 light bulbs, 10 100-watt light bulbs running for an hour uses 1 kilowatt hour. And that's really the unit of energy, the amount that's consumed versus the power, which is the kind of snapshot. So how much solar do you need? Each panel produces about 250 to 300 watts. The typical household in the US uses about 12,000 kilowatt hours per year. And the number of panels may depend as much on the size of your roof as your actual consumption. A lot of people can't actually get enough solar on their roof to offset 100%, depending on their roof. But the typical system in Marin is about 4 to 5 kilowatts in terms of size. So you're talking about 16 to 20, 25 panels. Is it right for you? One of the questions is, how's your roof? My husband and I are looking at our roof going, it's got 2 to 5 years left. It's not worth us putting solar on until we get a new roof. But because of the changes in tax credits, and I'm sure David will touch on those, we're probably going to get a new roof so we can get solar before the end of 2016 when the federal tax credits go away. And do you own your own home? If you don't, there's ways to benefit from solar and clean energy, and Marin Clean Energy will touch on that. So as long as you have some parts of your roof that are unshaded for a good portion of the day, it's probably worth going solar. And depending on how you finance it, you may be saving money from day one. But the first thing you should actually do is look at, are there other ways to save energy? So even if you can get solar for zero out of pocket, it just makes sense to make sure the home is insulated using energy efficient bulbs and so forth. And so with that, I'm going to hand it back to Emily to introduce the next speaker. Thank you.
Thank you, Deborah. Next is David Kuhnhart, who is the CEO of SolEd Benefit Corporation. He has a master's in urban and regional planning from George Washington University and is very active in the prevention of climate change in our community.
How many solar engineers does it take to change a light bulb? Only one, but the light bulb has to want to change, and you have to want to change. How many of you are seriously considering going solar? Cool, cool. I would like to thank, first of all, I think it's great that the background that we just had, it was done first because it saves me from several slides that I would otherwise have had. I want to pick up on one of the last things you said. You should have several hours of light. I just surveyed a couple of folks outside. 6 to 7 hours of light a day really starts to get you effective. So if you happen to have a home that is under a hillside and the sun just plain turns off for you after 3 o'clock in the afternoon, you got to look very carefully about whether or not it's going to function for you, either because of large trees or because of a hillside. So a few qualifying considerations. Let's go into what those may be. First of all, we've already spoken about the physical nature and you also need to look at the strength of your roof. Solar is not very heavy, but you can't get away with, let's say, 30-inch space 2x4 roofs, which many of the vacation homes, like on my hill in Corte Madera, were made with. So you got to look at that physical consideration. The next one I would say is a personal tax consideration. Deborah touched on this. Are you somebody who pays taxes? Do you have income? Would you like shelter? If you are paying taxes and you would like some shelter and can get a value from tax attributes, then that's a feature of your decision. If you don't particularly have a lot of income at present and you're concerned about cash flow or other things, then that may not be a big indication. And green tags. Now, this is more applicable to, let's say, the institutional folks that I work with who will, some of them very much want to be able to say, we have gone solar, we're doing our part, we're complying with the law, and they want the green tags and they want the bragging rights. And if you want to be able to authentically say, I own a solar system and I am getting the green attributes for my system, that will result in one type of decision. If you don't really care about that and you're going to be willing to have your solar company take those green attributes, then you can then that becomes a different choice. Now, do you want to have recourse or not? Do you want to owe somebody for your system? Do you want it to be a personal obligation of you or not? You can go solar with or without recourse. That's a consideration that you should consider. One is what is the rate that you actually pay for energy today? And most of us are in the PG&E area, and our rates are up there. Average rates 17, 18 cents. During the summer months, they're even higher, depending upon which billing you are on, and you should be aware of that. And before you do any exploration, you should get the last 3 months of your bills and just lay them out and look at what it says to you and pay attention to how much you're using, how much is it costing. Try to get that kilowatt hour average. And if you don't have your paper bill sitting around, there's a great way to go on the PG&E site and you can become an electronic customer for no extra money, no extra commitment. You just become an electronic customer and you can download the last year or two of all of your bills by pressing the green button. So go on the PG&E website and look for the green button and press it. Now, here's another important feature, and this was alluded to a little bit. You got to make an assessment of yourself. Are you somebody who really gets into technology and you really want to tinker, you want to know everything about it, you really are going to be concerned and able to handle different issues that come up? Or are you like many people who decide to lease a car because they really don't want to do anything except for make the payments? They just don't want to get under the hood. They don't want to change the oil even. They might test the tire pressure, but that's about all they are going to do. You have to make an honest assessment of what your character is and what you are willing to put up with and do. And that may affect your solar decision. Okay, so what are the pathways? What are the choices? The first one is you can buy it. And then you can decide and measure your payback of that purchase. Now, let's talk about the cost of solar. And this is absolutely something that you should and could talk openly with any provider about. What is my cost per watt DC of capacity of that system? Not cost per kilowatt hour. You are ultimately concerned about your hourly cost of energy, what is billable, what has economic value. But ask the blunt question, what is my cost per watt for this installation? And you will get different answers. Or you will get somebody telling you, well, that's not really important to you because we're going to give you a lease and we're going to save you money. Yeah, but I want to know what the background cost is. And if it's $3 a watt, you're extremely lucky because that's a price that only big buyers of systems, big systems, can get to. More likely, the honest answer is going to be between $4 and $5 a watt. So what does that mean? In our territory, in this town, certainly, if you don't have air conditioning, you can have a system that's, let's say, 3 to 5 kilowatt system. 3, 4, or 5 kilowatt. At $4, that's a $12,000 to $16,000 system in all. A little bit more, $5, obviously, for a bigger system, as much as $25,000 overall as the fundamental cost. And then you can decide who pays for that cost. One of the things that you can do if you buy it is you can borrow money to have it. Why would you do that? Well, if you can borrow money at an affordable rate, then you look at your monthly and you compare your monthly electric bill against your monthly cost to own whatever it is that you borrow. Then you have a direct comparison for the value of that solar facility. Now, I also surveyed each of the installers out there this morning, and I said, what's the minimum monthly bill that I need to have to make solar a serious consideration? And I got answers ranging from $40 a month to $125 a month. The honest answer, I believe, is that you really need to be north of $100 a month of electric bill. And it's not your gas bill, not your gas and electric bill, your electric bill. If it's more than $100 a month, then you're probably a candidate for somebody who can save money quite quickly and quite early on in going solar. The more you spend, the more you use, first of all, you should be looking at energy efficiency and ways to cut it back. A few years ago, we had a refrigerator die, and we replaced it with a brand new Energy Star refrigerator. Our monthly electric bill was cut in half. Refrigerators tend to be the biggest user of energy in your home if you're not air conditioned, and inefficient ones are just a huge drag. So look for ways that you could save on energy, but the more you pay on a regular basis, the quicker the payback is going to arrive. And how are some fundamental ways to borrow? Well, how many of you have a home mortgage? And so you own your home. And how many of you have an equity line by chance because you did a kitchen modernization or something? It's not easy these days to get an equity line added here, but if you have a low loan to value and the total aggregate cost of the solar is really a small part of the equity value of your home, then you can negotiate with your lender and add an equity portion at a relatively low rate. It should be at that mortgage rate, 3.5%, 3.75% is a great rate, and that will be able to get you into a position of savings. Now, you may flunk with your mortgage lender, and they say, no, we don't do cash out lend. But it's not cash out. I'm trying to put money and value into my house. It's a cash out mortgage if you're taking it to use it for something else. Well, if you flunk in your desire and in your aim to get an addition to your home mortgage, there are some independent people who are independent of solar companies who would be liking to make a loan on your solar system. Dividend Solar is one that's in San Francisco. But also, several of the solar companies have a loan program. And they will have a lease program that they would prefer to offer you, but they also have a loan program. And what's going to be the difference between owning it and leasing it? What's going to be the difference for you? Remember that tax side? If you're leasing it, the leasing company usually owns the tax benefits. You don't. If you buy it, you get those. And so what is that worth? Well, let's go back to a 3 kW system at $4 a watt. That's $12,000 in all. The 30% tax credit gives you $3,600 back in a credit, worth dollar for dollar to you. A credit is not like a deduction. It is a pure credit. It's a $3,600 credit is worth $3,600 to you. So the net cost of your system is all of a sudden only $8,400. So you could think about paying, let's say, pure cash for the amount that you're going to get back. You pay pure cash deposit of $3,600. You're going to get that back from Uncle Sam, and then borrow $8,400, and it's not going to take very long for that to be for that to be amortized. Does it make sense? Does that make sense? And you can lease it from the solar company, and this is a great option. Several of the vendors here and elsewhere have a lease program, and the essence of the lease program is that they're going to try like heck to make the lease payments be less than your former energy payments, so that you will be not exceeding what you used to pay for energy. You're going to be dropping the amount that you pay for energy with that lease. with a lease. You don't own it. They do. They have, but the risk is on you to the extent that with a lease, you will owe lease payments, hell or high water. You owe those lease payments, whether the system functions well or not. So you will probably want, at the same time that you sign a lease, if you do, say, okay, builder, you believe so well in your equipment, give me a guarantee for how much output I'm going to get, and I can then offset that guaranteed output against the required payments that I have on that lease, because those required payments will not go away if the system doesn't function well. Another way to go that some companies have is a power purchase agreement, and the risk is on them because you only pay for the clean energy that's delivered to you with a power purchase agreement. You only pay for the kWh that you get on your meter from that system. You don't have to make a down payment. You don't have any capital cost. You don't get the tax credit. They do. But you also just pay for the service that's delivered with the PPA. Now, not all of the installers will offer a PPA. It is not the most universal way to do it, but seek and ask around. Another one that I think is one that MCE is going to be very interested in talking about. It's not really a homeowner's option, and that would be a feed-in tariff. If you're a business owner and you have a great big roof or a great big parking lot, you can make an arrangement with a buyer of energy, whether it's PG&E or MCE or somebody else in our unregulated marketplace, and you can sell energy to them under a feed-in tariff program, and then you can become a net generator. Not typically relevant to the homeowner. I'm going to essentially stop there. A couple of things to do to look up. On one of the tables out there, the OFA table, the action table, there are several copies of this brand new guide. And this is a spectacular thing by the Solar Energy Industry Association, SEIA, in Washington, D.C., and it's a consumer guide to everything that I've just said. It's got great definitions of terms, great guidance. I will pass this around if you promise not to keep it, because it was expensive for me to print. And if you give me your card, I'll be happy to send you an electronic copy of that. But it's a really terrific guide. And I think I shall stop right there and let the rest finish, and we'll go back to questions later.
Thank you, David. Next, we will have Alex DeGiorgio from Marin Clean Energy. He is the Community Development Manager for MCE. He has his JD from UC Berkeley School of Law, and for the past 5 years has been active in the environmental arena at MCE, in the Palo Alto Green Energy and Compost Initiative, and the Clean Coalition.
Thanks, Emily. I'm going to start my timer too. My grandmother used to say, you've got 2 ears and 1 mouth, so you should listen twice as much as you talk. I'm still working on that. Thank you so much to Barbara and to Emily and the Quality of Life Commission for putting this together. This is really exciting. It's really exciting for me, especially because I don't live in Marin County. I actually live in the city of Oakland, which currently is a city of choicelessness. Hopefully that's going to change. We're working on that. But I can tell you it's quite an interesting experience at this point in history of our energy economy, where I spend a lot of time here in Marin and also in the cities of Richmond, El Cerrito, San Pablo, and a couple others that have now joined Marin, talking to people about what their energy options are, whether they want to opt up. And we've got 2 different 100% options available. Or if they want to opt out, that's fine too, to each their own. And then when I go back home, it's usually when I'm plugging in my EV, I realize I don't even have that option. I can't opt up, I can't opt out, it's opt nothing. But hopefully that will change. So it's really fun to be here to talk to people who have options. So I'm going to give some background on what MCE is very briefly, and then I'm going to talk about what our solar offerings are and what our power choices are, but specifically how they relate to solar, how they can help incentivize and catalyze more solar deployments, both residential, commercial, and even a little bit larger. So MCE, just a quick run through. We are a public agency. We are what's known as a community choice energy program. We're the MCE, thanks to the fine leadership of Barbara and others in government at the time, were the first to create a community choice energy program under state legislation back in 2008. And since that time, others have started. Sonoma Clean Power is now up and running quite successfully, and we helped them get started. Alameda County and San Mateo are both on their way, as are many other communities throughout California. But it all started right here. It all started in Marin. And it was quite a battle that I'm sure Barbara could tell you plenty about. But our mission is straightforward. We are here to address energy-related greenhouse gas emissions and secure energy efficiency, rate stability, my personal favorite, and economic and workforce development benefits. That's kind of a mouthful. Really what it comes down to is, number one, we advance sustainable development. Number two, we expand access to competitively priced renewable energy. Does anyone know what the first law of thermodynamics is? Thank you. Energy cannot be created, energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be transformed. So why is it such a limited resource, especially when you see how much sun there is every day? It comes down to access, and that's what MCE and other energy choice programs are here to do. They're here to provide access to more renewable energy. So the energy economy can be a complex place. Community choice energy, not complicated. Marin Clean Energy is responsible for energy procurement. So despite all the mishigas and the history between MCE and PG&E, the truth is we are primarily partners. MCE is responsible for procuring renewable energy, primarily. But it is still up to PG&E, or whatever the investor-owned utility is in California. If it's in Southern California, it'd be SoCal Edison or SDG&E. They are still responsible for pretty much everything else. Primarily delivery of the energy, that's transmission distribution, billing services, sending you a bill, among other things. And so every MCE customer remains a PG&E customer for everything except where the energy comes from, what type of energy resources you're using. But of course, we're here to compete because PG&E has their own energy supply portfolio, and we have our energy supply portfolio. We actually have multiple portfolios because we have a menu of options. So that's where we compete, because now the consumer is empowered with a choice. And so we want to elevate the standard of service by providing great renewable energy, plentiful renewable energy at competitive prices, in addition to innovative programs. So again, energy generation, energy delivery, customer gets to choose. Cesar Chavez has a great quote, which is, we cast a vote with every dollar that we spend. And that's true in every part of our economy, except the energy economy. If you're in the service area of a regulated monopoly, you're disenfranchised, essentially, from casting that vote. Thankfully, here in Marin County, these are your candidates to vote for from your energy choices. Now, per state law, community choice programs, wherever they're formed or wherever a community joins one that has formed, they become the default option. And there's very good reason for that. There's never been a utility that I'm aware of in California or anywhere else that had a utility that was opt-in. Because if you look at other opt-in programs, such as organ donation in this country, tends to be pretty low. If you look at organ donation in some other European countries where it's an opt-out program, tends to be pretty high. And so that's one of the reasons, but I can get into more of that another time or afterwards perhaps. But it's a opt-out program, so no harm, no foul. If people want to opt out, they can do so online. They return to PG&E. PG&E recently reported that its energy supply is 27% renewable. That will be verified by October. MCE, our default option is 50% renewable. It is slightly cheaper for residences. It's more substantially cheaper for businesses. And then there's the opt-up options. our deep green, 100% renewable option, that is a penny per kilowatt hour more. For the average home, it's about $5 more a month, about 17 to 18 cents a day for 100% renewable energy. But then we are actually in the process of building a second 100% renewable option, which is not only 100% renewable, but it's also 100% local, if you consider Novato to be local. Right now, in the Cooley Quarry, it's an abandoned quarry, we are helping to develop a 1 megawatt facility. It actually become 2 megawatts eventually. And all of the subscribers for that energy choice will be getting their energy from that specific facility. It's sourced at that facility. It's limited to 200 customers because it is just one humble megawatt. And right now we're taking pre-enrollment requests. There have been 60-something requests already, and we've barely marketed it yet. It does cost more. When you build that whole decentralized model that a lot of us want to see of power generation, it's not as cost effective, at least at this point in time, because you lose those economies of scale. So right now, for local solar, it's going to cost about $20 to $30 more a month for the average home. However, that's fixed for 20 years. And if you look at the way rates have been, especially in PG&E, they go up about 4 to 7% a year. So in a couple of years, I would expect that local solar option to be pretty competitive, but it does cost more today. I also want to mention that thanks in large part to the Quality of Life Commission and Nancy Vernon, there's a campaign underway here in San Anselmo to make the town of San Anselmo the deepest green community within MCE's service area. And again, thanks to the fine leadership here, the town itself has gone deep green, as have a couple other communities, but not all of them. So this is going to be one way for folks to participate in that part of the energy economy, and it complements solar very well. So we have incentives to create more solar generation here locally. I'm going to go over a couple of them briefly. So net metering. This is actually the program that's similar to PG&E's. It actually mirrors PG&E's, but it's different in certain ways. So again, the net metering is just the traditional rooftop solar where there's a comparison between how much you consume versus how much you produce. We apply our net metering rates instead of PG&E's. The benefit of our program are twofold. Number one, some people are surprised to learn with PG&E that at the end of the year, when they do what's called their annual true-up, and they see how much you use versus how much you consumed, if you have excess generation credits, they zero out, and you start from zero again. So that's a pretty good deal for PG&E because that's distributed local renewable energy that they just got. MC, we never zero out your account. We give you a choice at the end of the year. You can either let your credits roll over to the next year, or if you have $100 or more with the credit, we offer to mail you a check if that's your preference. So this can be a handy way of getting some additional income if you're energy efficient and you've got a good production there. There's also on-bill repayment. So on-bill repayment was originally designed by MCE for energy efficiency programs, energy efficiency installations. And our energy efficiency director would be disappointed with me if I didn't emphasize that you should try to reduce before you produce, but they work hand in hand. So right now, we haven't cut the ribbon on this quite yet, but we will in probably the next couple of weeks or maybe even a month or two. We're still working out. We've got to work this all out with the CPUC, and it can take some time. But the crux of the program are already there because we already offer this for energy efficiency. We've worked it out with a local bank that will actually provide what they call a green home loan, and folks can pay for their solar installation or their energy efficiency upgrades incrementally on their energy bill rather than having to pay thousands of dollars up front for it. So this is a great way for those folks who are really cost conscious but still want solar on their roof, because this is a way of really hedging and actually paying for it incrementally. There is some interest attached, so over the time you will be paying a little bit more, but again, you avoid those upfront costs so you can get into the local power producing state of affairs right away. Low-income rebates. We offer $500 rebates. We give priority to low-income customers for that because if you keep an eye on the solar industry, it tends to be there's issues because only certain people can afford it if you don't have this on-bill repayment program. And I should mention that MCE was the first in the state to offer on-bill repayment for energy efficiency. Now PG&E offers it as well for solar too. Again, I give MCE some credit for that because that's the beauty of competition. Elevates the standard of service. PG&E is trying to come up right now with their own 100% option, the green option. PG&E's been in the power business for about 120 years. It was in 2011, I think, that they started looking into the green option. Pretty sure MCE started providing power in 2010. Funny how that works. David mentioned the feed-in tariff. Now, this is for probably more than residential rooftops, unless you own a lot of residences. But for folks who want to not do that thing where you're balancing how much you produce versus how you consume, but just sell every kilowatt hour or megawatt hour that you generate directly to the grid and basically just be an energy entrepreneur, that's what the feed-in tariff is for. It's a standard offer contract is what it is, where MCE says, if you build it, we will buy it. So right now, the real estate in MCE service area and here is worth a lot more if you're an energy developer now, for renewable energy, that is, because we guarantee an above market purchasing price for that energy. And that's really what MCE is about. It's about offering another market, a wholesale purchaser and retail seller of energy. Because before, if you were a developer and you wanted to put solar panels on the Santa Fe Airport rooftop hangars, is there anyone who's going to buy it from you? Not necessarily. If PG&E doesn't want to, they don't have to. And then who do you go to? So with MCE, now there's a buyer of that energy, and we pay above market rates. So this is the actual Santa Fe Airport. It was the first feed-in tariff project. 1 humble megawatt, the largest solar facility that's ever been developed in Marin County until the next MCE facility gets up and running. The price at which MCE is purchasing the energy from that is $130 a megawatt hour. If you compare what solar wholesale today, in Houston, Texas, it's probably like $55 to $65 a megawatt hour. So we're paying way above market rate for that energy. Oh, Grandma, I'm sorry. And my point is there that we have capped this at 10 megawatts for now, so we're not going to go, this isn't going to go running away from us. And we've actually, with each 2 megawatts that we develop, we pull it down a notch to see how the economy is doing. And so right now we're paying about $100 to $110 a megawatt hour. But again, this is just the tip of the iceberg. This is really what we're into here. Also, you can see that we have almost 4,000 net energy metering customers too, providing 35 and change megawatt hours. So that's like just on the residential rooftops we have already in Marin in our service area. We have like 35 of those facilities already. So the residential rooftop really does make a huge difference. I would be happy to take questions. We could talk a lot more about this. One thing I just want to say is that it's no coincidence that electricity is called power, because that's exactly what it is. It is political power in this state. If you ever hang out in the halls of Sacramento, political power. It's economic power because we are now opening up the market to other people who are homeowners, people who are energy entrepreneurs. And it's even cultural power. Because I tell you, driving an electric car, it's a really different experience in the sense that you start to realize that how much of my gasoline is going towards making a vroom vroom sound and making things hot that we then have to cool versus an electric car, which doesn't have any of those things. It's a much more simple engine. And it's really ironic that we have to go far and wide to pull prehistoric energy out of the ground, to then ship it across the ocean, to then refine it, to then put it in a big diesel truck and drive that truck to a station, and then put it in the ground, and then have electricity to pull it back out of the ground, to put it in your car, to get it to make your car overheat. That's not a very efficient system. And I laugh when I drive by gas stations sometimes because it's like, man, you can plug in anywhere. I go all sorts of places. You can find electricity anywhere you need it. Gasoline, trying to get it in the ground to pull it up. And then when something like Hurricane Katrina happens and there's gasoline underground, but you don't have electricity to pull it up and put it in your car, Dios mio. We can do better than that. Thanks to MCE and leaders like Barbara and the Quality of Life Commission, we have other options. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Alex. So now we will turn to a Q&A session. So I'd like to invite our speakers to come up here. Joining us for question and answers is Jordy Winery, who has several years' experience installing and maintaining solar systems for residences and small commercial offices, and an electrical contractor and solar contractor. And he now works for an international company doing utility-size installations and maintenance. So all of our speakers, as well as Jordi, are available to answer your questions. As I mentioned before, we welcome you to stop by the vendor tables outside on the lawn. There is an MCE table out there as well. And also, please do stop by the Quality of Life Commission table if you're interested in learning more or joining our commission. We will have a microphone to give to individuals who would like to ask a question, so you can be picked up by the cameras that are recording. So if you have any questions, feel free to raise your hand.
Who's doing the mics?
Hold one moment.
Here you go, so we can hear you.
So I've been looking into a paid power purchase agreement. I just want to be blunt. I want to know if you think that paying 13 cents per kilowatt hour is a good deal.
Can I go for that? How much are you paying otherwise, is the question.
Well, I think you're the one who said PG&E charges 14 to 16 cents.
Well, it depends whether you're on time of use. If you can put yourself on a time of use tariff with solar, you can be getting a credit from PG&E at over 40 cents.
No, this agreement doesn't give me the credit.
Oh, I beg to differ with you. All of the net metering credits come to the owner of the meter. You will have a steady charge to pay to the PPA provider for anything that the renewable energy delivers to your meter. So you will always pay 13.
I'm sorry, sir, but you're talking way over my head. All of your concepts are things that you're used to talking about, and
okay, let me break it down. The solar, whatever the solar delivers, you will pay for under the power purchase agreement, right? And that's going to be during the day. So you're going to be paying during the day when it produces. At night, when you're buying residual, you're buying from a combination of PG&E and MCE, right? And during the peak times of day, as Deborah pointed out, your solar facility is actually going to be producing more than you're using. And so what happens with that extra? Well, you're going to pay the PPA provider at 13 cents, and PG&E and MCE are going to credit you at over 40 cents at the same hour for that power that's delivered. And so the net metering benefit, it's sometimes called the solar lift, all goes to you, not to the PPA provider. So you just have to evaluate whether your cost of that clean energy from the PPA provider is worth it to you, given your circumstance of how much else you're paying and what your credits will be, which can only go to you. They can't go to anybody else. They can only go to the owner of the meter.
Okay,
I think Deborah wants to pitch in something. No, you lean forward.
I think the whole question of is 13 cents good, part of that's about talking to other companies that are doing PPAs. It sounds like the sort of rates that I hear other PPA things offered at. One of the questions when you're looking at lease versus purchase is also looking at how long you think you're going to be in the home and whether a leased solar system or PPA solar system is going to make it any harder to sell your home. And that really is only a risk if you happen to have a home purchaser whose credit is good enough to get the mortgage but not good enough to get the solar loan, so it's not usually that much of an issue here. And what they've found is whether it's leased or purchased, that the value of having solar on your house is adding, I think Berkeley said it was an average of about $15,000 to the value of your home. So I think the question is usually in the same way as when you're getting a car, should I lease or should I buy? I think for me, solar's the same question. The reason that I would choose to purchase, even if I use a loan, over using a PPA or a lease is that I expect to be in my house a long time. And so after 7 years or so, once my solar system is fully paid off, it's all money in my pocket. Whereas with a PPA, or a lease, it's 20 years, and then after that, you don't end up with the residual benefit. So I think that's part of the question is of lease versus buy.
Thanks very much.
I have to also confess, on behalf of everybody in the industry, that there is a lot of jargon and there's a lot of specialized knowledge, and it's unfortunate that it is sometimes used to kind of gloss over some of the details in the selling process. So for that reason, you should definitely talk to 2 or 3 different providers. You may like a benefit corp, Sungevity, because they're going to be a little bit more straight with you, but they may or may not have the price that you want. Or you may like somebody else because they have the price you want, and it doesn't matter because the contract is really solid and really clear, and you're going to get what you want. It's unfortunate. Energy is not a simple topic.
I have a question for Alex. The question is, what Governor Brown has done with incentives for solar investment, research, and installation. There's a bill passed SB 350, and now there's a thought that there should be an assembly bill. My question is, do you see benefits to you from this state initiative?
Oh man, well, I'm embarrassed to admit that I'm not keeping up with what SB 350 is about.
I'm going to tell you what it is.
Please. I'm not the legal director or the regulatory counsel. Well, I have a JD. I'm actually not a lawyer. I'll get in trouble if you call me one. But I'm sure I have an opinion about it once I know what it is.
First of all, just so as you know, I'm not trying to give Alex a hard time. I am going to give him a hard time that he didn't mention that the 50% light green is actually now about 63% of what MCE delivers. If you opt into the light green, is closer to 63% clean energy. So they're doing even better, and they're saving their customers money, and they're making a little money so they can put the money in the bank and get a better credit rating and buy energy for less from others. I think the success story is really terrific with MCE. SB 350 does 3 things, and it's a clever little play on words, because it was one of the first bills registered this year, but they gave it the number 350 because it says by 2030, right now the state has an RPS, a renewable portfolio standard of all the the big investor-owned utilities have to produce 33% of their energy from clean sources by 2020. What happens after that? We're going to make that, by the way. We're going to make that as a state. But what happens after that? Should the curve keep going up? Can it go to 100%? Well, yes. Governor Brown said, by 2030, let's get to 50%. Not 33%, 50% by 2030. Let's also go to the dirtiest source, which Alex denigrated by his criticism, the dirtiest source of energy for our air, and that is fossil fuels in vehicles. And let's reduce the fossil fuel use in vehicles by 50% by 2030. The third is let's increase energy efficiency in all buildings by 50% by 2030. Ambitious goals, and Senator Kevin De Leon, President of the Senate, has introduced this together with Senator Pavley and a couple of others that incorporates the concepts that Governor Brown had sort of put out there and plus one in early January, and it's now working its way through. It's going to get heavy resistance. But guess what? If we adopt that, California will be the clear leader in the United States of any jurisdiction of where we're going. To me, that's the most important piece of legislation this year.
So,
are you with me?
Yes, I'm totally with you. So I actually knew about these proposals. I did not know the number of the bill. So now I know. I can tell you that MCE, and again, I'm not our regulatory counsel, but those are all goals that we would support. So I can't comment for our regulatory counsel if officially MCE is supporting that, but our regulatory counsel could do that. But we support those goals for a variety of reasons. One, We are at above 50%. We're actually 53% renewable. Renewable is a legal term, actually. Renewable is wind, solar, biopower, geothermal, small hydroelectric. It is not large hydroelectric, so large dams, not renewable under state law. Nuclear power, not renewable under state law. People like to call it carbon-free, which is funny because it takes a hefty amount of carbon to mine and process uranium. And to be fair, nothing's carbon-free. So MCE would support going above the RPS, the Renewable Portfolio Standard of 33%. Marin County has already exceeded that, and MCE was the first reporting agency, the first load-serving entity to meet that requirement and beat that requirement. We would love to see it be a requirement for the rest of the state to be where MCE is, and it will push us to do better. Our long-term goal is to be providing 100% renewable energy to all our customers. That's the goal. Right now, we're letting our customers decide based on what's cost-effective for them if they want to take that leap now or if they want to wait until we can make it cost-effective for everyone to do so. Increased energy efficiency, absolutely something that MCE supports. We look at energy efficiency as a resource. It's the cheapest way to provide power. People like to call it the negawatt, the watt that you don't use. So more that would be better for our bottom line, because remember, MCE as a public agency, we don't have shareholders to whom we have to pay a dividend, which is one of the main reasons why we can provide more renewable power and still have rates that are cheaper. PG&E has more vice presidents than we have entire staff. There's a cost savings there too. My point in saying that is that the less energy our customers use, that's risk reduction for us. That's less energy we have to purchase on their behalf. And since we're not trying to make money for investors, that can be our goal, is reducing usage. With the electric vehicles, that's kind of the opposite side of the spectrum. The more we can get our vehicles running on clean electricity, renewable power, that is not only helping us meet our mandate, but that actually is good for our bottom line, for our net revenues, because that's going to be power that we get to sell. And then we get to take those net revenues and turn them towards more innovative programs and policies. I didn't get a chance to talk about the Tesla Powerwall that we have a pilot program on, so you can switch off the grid after you've charged it with your solar panels. We can use those net revenues to keep rates more competitive. You get the idea. One thing I also have to say is Deep Green. I failed to mention that half of the penny per kilowatt hour that people pay on the premium is earmarked for a local renewable development fund. So that means that if you're a Deep Green customer, you are directly, personally subsidizing renewable energy development within our service area. Right now, MCE is preparing to develop a 10.5 megawatt solar facility in the city of Richmond. Once it's built, it will be the largest of its kind in Northern California. And our Deep Green customers, that Deep Green fund, is being used to pay for the workforce training and development. We're working with an organization called Richmond Build that is training local workers to be the future green collar workers. So again, hats off to the Deep Green customers for casting that vote.
Any other questions?
Just one practical question for Jordy. So if I want to put one of these things on my roof, what do you look for in a roof? You know, what does it do to my roof when I put one of these things on there? And how much change do I have to make to the roof to install, you know, a large solar system?
That's a good question. You want to make sure that you're not going to have to replace your roof within 10, 15 years. So you want to, it's best to incorporate a new roof if it's not already new. And the benefits are huge. I noticed this early on. When you put a solar system on a roof, it stands about 4 inches above the roof. So you get a layer of shade on top of that. So during the summer, when the direct sun is normally on your roof, it's actually being shaded by your system, which actually pulls cold air through convection to actually cool your roof off, so you don't have to cool your house as much by a huge percentage.
And the roof lasts longer.
And the roof lasts, yeah, a lot longer. I personally suggest using our microinverters around in this area because a lot of the shading issues with the string inverters, which is explained wonderfully. you can get around. There used to be a big thing with shade, and there was no way to get around it. Your system would drop if there was any shade on the modules. If you have high energy use, then solar is the way to go. The payback is so quick now. It's really, really beneficial.
I'm poking a hole in my roof.
Well, yes and no. Yes and no. Let's. What was that?
Yeah.
If he just elaborates a bit on roof penetrations, I think that will answer the question.
Well, there's a lot of the technologies actually and the practices have come up because in the early days the building inspectors weren't really sure of what to look for, and so there were a lot more failures of roofs, but the inspectors are a lot more aware of what they're looking for, and the new types of mounting, the racking and the feet penetrations into the roof, the flashing designs are so they're pretty well designed so that there's a mechanical barrier, which didn't used to happen. They used to use silicone as the barrier between the water and the inside of the roof, which would fail after a period of time, possibly.
All the new systems are put on with a piece of flashing, if you will. Anytime you have a bunch of holes coming out of your roof with the vents for your plumbing and any heating, those all have a skirt around it, and that skirt is worked up into the shingles, and the attachment is happening underneath the shingles. So the solar literally gets attached by somebody lifting up the shingles and sliding the piece of equipment up under there. They will lift it up, they will make the penetrations there, and then drop the shingles back down. So there's no hole in the roof any more than your roof has holes in it. Every single roof has holes in the underside of the shingles. Okay. There was something else about install. If you have a tile roof, that's the hardest circumstance for any solar installer to deal with. If you have a standing seam metal roof, that's the best circumstance with anybody can deal with, because in a standing seam metal roof, the little vertical seams are metal that's like this, and the solar comes along and clamps that and holds it even tighter. And there are simple clamps, no penetration of the roof except for the place where the wires go down in. So standing seam metal roof is the best type. Flat roof is probably the second best. And shingle roof, there are many standard applications that all should function.
And even with tile roofs, there's special, you go to these solar conferences and there's acres and acres of different companies selling different mounting technologies, and there's special ways that they can attach. So Australia, where I come from, tile roof is the default, and there's a lot of clipping systems that were developed in Australia or Italy or other places where tile roofs are common. So it can be done. They're less
expensive.
common, they're more expensive. Even standing seam, which is actually a better roof and a better way of attaching, is a little more expensive just because it's not the thing that the solar installers are using every day. So if you do have a tile roof, make sure you use an installer who does enough tile roofs that you don't want to be the first time that they've used any technology. You want to be working with a solar installer that's really kind of practiced at roofs like yours or technology that you're choosing.
Yeah, and actually the tile roof technology has come a long way. I installed tile roofs last year, and there are several manufacturers where you lift up the tile and put your penetration in, and there's a little arm that comes up, and so you can put the tile back on. And so and then the tile roof should last indefinitely. And and the cost is about 50 cents per watt more if you have a tile roof as well. So the cost is quite a bit.
I think one of the questions is also about your roof warranty. And so you see some companies like Peterson Dean that do roofing and solar where they'll wrap the warranty together. But if you are in the situation like my husband and I, where we're actually looking at a new roof and looking at solar, one of the questions we're asking anyone that we're talking to is, can we get a solar, can we get a roof warranty that includes the solar, or is there some sort of wraparound if you have an existing roof and you're not getting a new roof? Is there a wraparound warranty? Like, often with the window film companies, they'll take a look at the warranty from your window company and for a small amount will transfer it and do a wraparound warranty. So that's kind of a question you should ask any installer, is what happens to my roof warranty? Is there a workaround that you can offer so my 20-year warranty roof isn't suddenly void?
I just want to mention before the next question that as you take a look, stop by the vendor tables. Some of them do have some panels with them, both PV and solar thermal. I think it's really informative as consumers to really be familiar with the actual technology. And in my work, I've had the opportunity to interact with some installations and see them in action. And I think it really helps give you an appreciation of the technology and the installation process to really see the technology and to feel it. So I'd really encourage you to stop by those tables and check it out. MCE and PG&E have a lot of free resources around energy efficiency and solar. And so if you're really in the initial exploratory phase, I'm happy to talk to you. Obviously, Alex could talk to you about just learning more about energy and understanding it and knowing how to read your bill and knowing what to look for. I think that really helps the consumer make an informed decision. I am a renter, and so talking about roofs for me is not irrelevant at this point in my life. And so I've benefited a lot from the energy efficiency resources from MCE and PG&E. Are there other questions for our speakers?
I actually had two questions, more on the nitty-gritty side of the lease, for example. On a typical solar lease, what is the usual end-of-term purchase option available to the owner? That's the first question. And the second question had to do with the tax credit. And if you can't use it all of it in 1 year, can you carry it into the next year?
Yeah. One of the great things about the tax credit is that you can roll it forward for up to 20 years. So any amount that you don't use right away, you can use in future years. I don't pretend to have a good answer for all of the actual lease products that are available. It's very common that it's a 10-year term or a 15-year term. It's pretty unusual for a residential lease to be longer, but I hear that there are some that are 20 years, and then it's negotiable. In their business, there really needs to be a residual, and so there should be a buyout provided by you at the end of that term. And roughly, after 10 years, roughly 20% of the original value. That's a fine print thing that you absolutely need to look into. Same as with the car. There's a residual value in your car, and the lower the residual value that they say should cause you to worry about their belief in their equipment. I went to look at leasing a hybrid vehicle a few years ago, and at that time, Ford Motor Company didn't give me hardly any residual value on a lease deal. And I said, wait a minute, you don't believe that this has future value. Why should I take it on? They have changed considerably, and they have really great hybrid and electric vehicles. But does anybody else have a notion of the back end of a lease?
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what they do at the back end, but one thing to recognize is that most solar panels themselves, the actual modules, are usually about a 20 to 25-year warranty, and their useful life continues, but their actual production degrades over time. So about 20 years in, you're getting about 80% of the energy you get in the first year. The actual inverters, if you have a string inverter, those generally have a useful life of 10 to 15 years. Most of them come with a 10 or 12-year warranty. And so you're looking at changing that out. You're also looking at, with microinverters, they're usually around a 25-year warranty. Changing those out becomes a bigger issue because they're actually up on the roof. So to a certain degree, I think most of the leasing companies have this sort of mindset that, after 20 years, it's kind of a, sunk cost, lost value, don't want to deal with it sort of mindset. So I think a lot of them, I don't know if they actually offer buyouts, but I don't think they're like eager to come and rip 20-year-old technology off your roof and resell it on eBay, because it's still going to be producing power, but it's going to have some other issues. One financing option that wasn't raised by anyone, but I think is really exciting. It's called a PACE program. The PACE stands for
Property Assessed Clean Energy.
Yeah, and so what that is it's basically, it's a loan, but it's a loan that goes onto your property tax. And depending on which CPA you talk to and whether they're feeling generous or not, the thought is that because it's part of your property tax bill, there are people who think you can therefore deduct the full value. And so far, the IRS has never turned around and said, don't do it. So there's now a PACE program called California First. And so different providers, different solar installers, if you want to finance it, may be able to do it through that. They can also do other energy efficiency and even roof replacements and things using PACE energy. So if you are looking at borrowing and you want to own your system at the end, that may well be worth looking at.
My personal bias, when I've looked into California First and the PACE rates, is that it's a terrific thing for the investors, because the investors are saying, hey, whatever happens with that piece of real estate, I'm going to get first position out money. So they're going to loan or invest money in at 3. And the typical cost to the consumer is really more like 6.5, 7. And if you can get a home equity loan at 3 3/4, you're going to spend half as much on interest, particularly if it's a long term. However, a great advantage of the PACE program locally is that you can take energy efficiency improvements and solar and wrap them together into a PACE financing and then spread it out over a lot of years. And yeah, the monthly is relatively low. In the aggregate, it's not such a fantastic deal for the consumer, but it can work. And it can work in particular if you have some costly energy efficiency improvements, in my opinion, to add in. All that's personal opinion, and I'm sure that those who've worked hard to make PACE successful are angry at me right now.
If I could just make one comment on PACE, I really am grateful that Deborah brought it up, because that is another really important option out there. MCE's offerings are most certainly PACE compatible. There are multiple PACE programs available in Marin County. Our energy efficiency director, Becky Metton, one of the best in the business, she is managing PACE, so you can see how compatible it is with energy efficiency. Because our energy efficiency director is responsible for managing our PACE offerings. An easy way to think of PACE is similar to our on-bill repayment program, only instead of paying incrementally on your energy bill, you'd be paying your property tax. But that's just conceptually, they're separate. But again, you have multiple options.
Yeah, and I suggest reading the fine print on any lease to find out how you're going to get out of that, because I've heard that there's sometimes some tricky, requests for money at the end. And the PACE program is awesome, I believe, in my opinion, because you can actually incorporate getting a new roof with the solar at the same time, which is incredible, because taking a solar system on to put a new roof on is very expensive.
And most solar companies have no way to pay for your roof. A roofing company who does solar could, but most solar companies can't. You have a question, sir.
Yes, I was looking at your little slide presentation up there, and I have never seen one of those in the United States. How efficient are they?
That's solar thermal.
That's a thermal.
That's a solar thermal water heater, so it's not for electricity. I think they're quite efficient. They're everywhere in Israel and Italy. I'd see them a lot.
Greece. In Hawaii, they use them a lot. It's only been in the last year or two that the cost of solar electricity, PV has fallen so low, and those, because they're not as common, have stayed fairly, and the technology's not changing so much, they've stayed fairly constant. So they now, there was something in Solar PV World recently where they now think it's actually cheaper to use solar PV to make electricity to use an electric hot water heater. But some companies are even doing hybrid systems that heat water and create PV at the same time. But I think, I think ultimately for me, the more energy efficient way of doing hot water is through a tankless system. These all require a tank, so it's just a they do actually get more of the energy from the sun and convert it into something, but cost-wise, it's not necessarily penning out anymore.
There's a subsidy now. There is a subsidy through the California Solar Initiative for hot water that no longer exists for PV.
Oh,
Yeah.
I mean, typically what you see with solar hot water is that it pencils out very nicely for commercial. An apartment building with 8 units plus, it's a no-brainer. For residential, it's typically 20 years payback, thereabouts, and I've never seen a residential solar hot water deal that I've been involved that actually happened. In the end, the homeowner will typically go, nah, it's not really worth it.
I see
solar
it a lot
PV
in
always
Hawaii,
is,
though.
but yeah, no, sure.
Yeah, that's
Hawaii is a
over
different
there.
story. I mean, the
Yeah.
land of the 45-cent kilowatt hour. I mean, it's a different thing altogether. But in Northern California, residential solar hot water seems to be not really an option.
If I could just make one comment on it, only because my sister-in-law used to run the solar thermal hot water program for the Center for Sustainable Energy, and as David mentioned, that program, the CSI program for solar thermal, is still available. It didn't get a lot of traction, I think, because it's a lot less sexy than PV. Yeah. It's basically just plumbing, right? This is not high tech. This is pretty low tech. So there's still money available for that, and the cost, yes, the payback period is low, but the total upfront cost is really low. So we're talking low thousands of dollars, not high thousands of dollars to install these.
Right, but I mean the smaller systems, of course, the install cost, et cetera, and labor,
Sure,
et cetera. But if you have an apartment building and you get maker's depreciation and you get the CSI incentives on it, you're golden. Yep. It's a no-brainer. It's 80% off. It's fantastic.
Just make sure you get a
question.
You put that on your roof. You have to pump the water up to the roof. That takes electricity. It's like you do that with pool heating commonly, and that electricity is expensive. So now you need more solar PV to generate the electricity. Something like that could add 25% to your electrical bill.
No.
It's only if it's an open system. If it's a closed system and you're running antifreeze through it and then running the antifreeze basically the alcohol through that's a little different.
It's a lot cheaper.
It is.
Efficiency of the motors is a lot higher now too. The efficiency of the motors that they're using now too are so much more efficient.
But let's not forget that close, ethanol systems have their own costs, right? Because you're renewing the ethanol about every 5 years, thereabouts.
Glycol?
The glycol, I mean, sorry. Yeah.
So I'd like to honor our closing time of 11:30. I believe the speakers will be here available for questions, and please do stop by the vendors and our table out on the lawn. But we do want to thank everybody for coming today. And if you have additional questions, again, please do come to speak with us. Check out the Quality of Life Commission link at the website and our Facebook page. And Barbara?
Yeah, I also wanted to say I passed around a sign-up sheet, so we'll use that to send out so you can have my contact, and if you have questions or something, we can get them out to the people, as well as some of the links, like to the package that
and
David
there's some paper
spoke to.
copies. The action table out there has some paper copies of this.
Yes, and also the County of Marin and their sustainability organization, they have people who can help answer some of your questions when you're actually talking to solar vendors and getting some quotes. They can help walk you through some of that as well, and I can get that contact information out. So thank you, and if you didn't get signed up, it's back here, and you can do that before you leave.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Okay.